Good morning. My name is Joe Carlos. I'm a writer for the American Gunsmith magazine. And once again, we are at Camp Perry during the National Service Rifle Championships. I thought since we are here at Camp Perry and the emphasis is on accuracy with the AR-15, I would cover another topic dealing with accuracy. When Stoner designed this very good and very reliable firearm, he probably didn't design it for accuracy. He designed it to be a reliable battlefield weapon that could be worked on easily by individuals with minimal training, unlike its predecessor, the M14, which was very difficult to work on. Unfortunately, in designing it to be easy to work on and to be reliable under battlefield conditions, there are certain characteristics of this rifle that make it less than stellar when it comes to accuracy. I've already talked about and written about some of these things, one of which is this terrible method of mounting the barrel to the receiver using just a barrel nut, which allows a tremendous amount of play in the back of the barrel. As I mentioned, I've already covered that. Another limiting factor with regard to accuracy in the AR-15 is the fact that the upper and lower are just held together with two pins, allowing an awful lot of movement between the two receivers and resulting in poor accuracy. We do have an article in Q for the American Gunsmith titled The Incredible AccuEdge, which covers considerably more than just the AccuEdge, but please watch for that, and it'll tell you how to eliminate a lot of this play. What I'm going to discuss this morning is third down on the queue of things that make the AR-15 less than accurate, and that has to do with bolt carrier tilt. If you go into any arms room in any military service or any gun store that sells a lot of AR-15s, and you look at the back of the upper receiver, you'll notice that the bolt carrier tilts downward. And if you doubt that, you can take your feeler gauges and you can measure the amount of gap that you see here at the top between the top of the bolt carrier and the bottom of the bolt carrier, and you'll find that there's a lot of gap at the top, very little gap at the bottom. What that creates then is a bolt carrier that's not lined up with the center of the bore of the barrel, because you will remember that the bolt is in the bolt carrier. So if you tilt the bolt carrier, as I'm doing now, very exaggerated, if you tilt it down at the back, the face of the bolt itself will not be perpendicular to the bore of the rifle, and you will not be centering the bullet on the barrel, thus causing deformation and poor accuracy. So we're going to discuss this morning some ways of correcting that problem with what I call anti-tilt devices. I start with a match bolt carrier, and there are three companies that make really good match bolt carriers. The one in my hand right now is made by Les Baer. Young Manufacturing also makes a very good match bolt carrier, as does JP Enterprises. Most of these match bolt carriers are built up at the front half of the carrier, and that helps with bolt carrier tilt because that build-up does not allow as much tilt at the back of the carrier as a normal bolt carrier would do. And also, most of these match bolt carriers are better polished, smoother, resulting in more consistent bolt carrier velocity and more consistency in the positioning of the round on the bolt face and in the chamber of the rifle. Just substituting a match bolt carrier for a conventional carrier, according to my studies, will reduce your group size by an average of 8.8%. So if you're building a gun, you have to buy a bolt carrier anyway to build the gun. Why not buy a good bolt carrier that tightens your group a little bit, such as one of these? I wanted to do something more, however, to combat this tilt, because even a match carrier will tilt a little bit. So I simply take small cap head screws. I drill and tap the back of the carrier in 2 locations. I do it at about 4:30 and at about 7:30. Drill and tap that and countersink it a little bit so that the head goes down into the countersink. I want to get about 35 thousandths of protrusion with the cap head screw. That is about average to level the bolt carrier. And to do a really good job, you want to take your feeler gauges, and as you're bringing these cap head screws out, you want to take your feeler gauge, measure at the top of the receiver, the gap at the top of the receiver, measure the gap at the bottom of the receiver. Try to get those to be equal. Your thought process is to level the back of the bolt carrier, but you don't want to get too hoggish on it. If you let these screws extend out too far, then you'll tip the carrier in the opposite direction, so that it's high at the back and low at the front, again throwing the bolt face off. It's also important that you get an equal amount of protrusion on both of these screws, so that the bolt carrier is also centered left to right in the receiver. Any deviation from that, up or down, left or right, will produce poor accuracy. After I've got the amount of protrusion that I want, I Loctite it in, and I also stake it the same way that you would stake these screws that hold the bolt carrier key in place. I get the stake from Brownells, and I stake the anti-tilt pad in about 3 places to keep it from backing out. Be careful with some of the older rifles that have been around 20 years ago. The alignment of the lower to the upper was not as good as it is today, and if you get the alignment done poorly, you can actually jam up the gun with the anti-tilt pads. So make sure you have good alignment up and down. Make sure that you clean your bolt carrier and your receiver every day, and I like to put a little dollop of Tetragun grease. Comes in the white, it's a white grease that comes in these little toothpaste type containers. Put a little dollop on each of those anti-tilt pads before you go to the range every day. How much is a dollop? About the size of a match head. Put that on here to keep it well lubed, and you should be good to go. Now, I tried something else that I want to share with you that didn't work. These caponized bolt carriers that have very little surface back here on the back won't work with the anti-tilt pads because there's no surface to locate them. I don't care for these cheap bolt carriers, but I was hoping that I could find a way for people that already have these things to overcome tilt. I found this heavy buffer, and it's designed for piston operated guns, not direct impingement guns like Stoner designed. But it is advertised as helping with bolt carrier tilt from a function standpoint, not from an accuracy standpoint. Piston guns, for whatever reason, suffer from bolt carrier tilt with regard to function. So I obtained one of these, and the way that it is supposed to work, you'll notice that there's a section right here that matches up with the rear of the bolt carrier, so that when one of these is in place in the firearm, sort of looks like this. This area is built up, it's fatter than a normal unit, and that's supposed to provide the appropriate amount of lift to overcome bolt carrier tilt in a piston rifle. So I tried it in a conventional Stoner design gas impingement, and I found that it didn't work. It didn't give me any accuracy improvement at all. I believe if this section here were just a little bit fatter, it would provide enough lift to give me some improvement, but I'm sorry to say the way it comes, it didn't do me any good. This is what happens sometimes when people try to use a part differently than what it was designed for. So it just didn't work. What we've been talking about today is trying to do a better job of centering the bullet on the bore of the barrel. It is by no means the end of that topic. I've covered some of this in a couple of the articles that I've written for the American Gunsmith magazine, one of which was titled Better Ammunition, and that appeared in April of 2016. That article has to do with ammunition concentricity, which is centering the bullet in the casing, and a lot of other topics regarding getting that bullet in the center of the bore. I also covered the topic a little bit in a three-part article that I wrote in July, August, and September of 2014 on AR-15 chamber selection. So we can do a better job of getting the bullet centered on the bore by manipulating the ammunition, by manipulating the bolt carriers, and by manipulating the chambers that we put in our rifles. Most of the chambers for gas guns have to be rather fat for function purposes, but for gas guns used in single shot competitions, such as this 30-inch AR-15 barrel that I sell to Palma shooters, we can tighten the dimension of the neck of the chamber, and by doing that, we can also help center the cartridge with the barrel. So I hope that these tips have helped you a little bit, and thank you very much for listening to me today.